Hi and welcome to another narration presented by yours truly, Cryptids Roost. Please be so kind as to throat punch the like button and smack the ass of the subscription button as well. And remember to tap the notification bell and then select all. That way you'll receive all notifications each time I upload a new video. Oh, and don't forget to share the video far and wide. This will all help with YouTube's algorithm and will help promote the channel more. And if you're going to leave a dislike, please be so kind as to comment why. That way I can review what you didn't like about the video and I can possibly make changes in future videos. Thank you. If you enjoy listening to the following story, be sure to pop over to the author's Reddit profile and drop them a line, or even give them a glowing review. I'm sure they would appreciate it. The link to their Reddit profile will be below in the description. So grab your coffee, sit back and enjoy the show. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not. Camp Wanahee, Part 3. This fantastic story is written by Wanahee, a wonderful author over on Reddit's NoSleep subreddit. Hey everyone, Carl here. There hadn't been much to tell you about lately since I've been on bed rest while my foot heals. That is until a couple of days ago when shit hit the fan. If any of you need to freshen up on what's been happening here recently, check out part 1 and 2. I'm going to have to skip the whole new fact thing this time. There's just too much has happened today. Things have started to get really weird. I know that doesn't mean much since this place is weird to begin with, but things have just gone completely sideways now. It's kind of hard to explain, but I'll try my best. I've had to stay off my foot for a few days, which gave me time to fashion a makeshift crutch. It's essentially a big branch that Maria found for me with a Y shape at the end to put my armpit in. I cushioned it with some old rags and it has worked well so far. Don't get me wrong, I am used to solitude, but hearing all of the kids and counsellors out and having fun with their activities whilst I stayed inside was driving me a little crazy. I should say I have been completely alone since Maria came by to check on me, bring me food and chat with me. Even John McCain stopped by a couple of times, but he doesn't talk much. Maria was very proud of having talked to him about not bringing us more dead animals. He did stop and she's still alive, meaning I was wrong and I have to give her credit for her plan working. Anyway, I was incredibly surprised one day when I woke up from one of my moonshine-induced stupors. Seriously, that stuff has to have something other than alcohol in it. To find Enola sitting by my bed. She was chatting softly with another person and I was having a hard time focusing since I was still a little inebriated. Enola? She turned and smiled at me, wrinkles forming at the edges of her dark brown eyes. Hey Carl, we heard that you'd had an accident and came by to see how you were doing. Oh, I said as I patted her hand. That's so nice of you. It's good to know there are friends like you around who are just looking out for people like me. Of course, and we also brought you some herbal medicines that will help with the pain. You should probably not continue to drink the moonshine, it'll probably kill you far quicker than any infection. She sat a leather satchel on my bed. I've written instructions on how to use them so you don't end up dying or tripping balls. I nodded as I picked up the satchel. That's smart. You're smart, Enola, I said as I opened the satchel and was hit with a variety of strong herbal scents, which made me almost immediately dizzy. I resealed the satchel and sat it on my side table. I really appreciate that. So, how have you been? I've been doing alright, living life one day at a time, pretty boring stuff. I nodded. Well, that's good, doing better than me, I said as I lifted my foot. By the way, have you run into the thing that may have escaped from the doorway? The smile dropped from her face. Well, that's the reason why we're here, Carl. I haven't seen anything new in the woods, but things feel off around here. Also, my great aunt Maida had a vision, and she insisted that she come and see you. She gestured towards the foot of my bed. I turned to find a very old woman sitting at the end of the bed. Her hair was silvery white and braided down her back, while her face had so many age lines that they piled on top of each other. Her hands were gnarled and held an old walking stick with the head of a wolf engraved on the top. Its sharper edges and lines have been smoothed and worn away over many years of use. This woman was old, so old she made Coot look young. Mida said nothing as she stood on shaky legs. I watched as her eyes rolled into the back of her head as they widened. "Is this normal?" I asked. Enola shushed me as Mida took a long wheezing inhale and began speaking in a raspy voice layered on top of many others. "With blood to spill and hunger sate. Doors have opened, fear awakes. Demon walks his place askew, and with them terror made anew. Their mother lets her children play. On this earth they wish to stay. The one who travels far from here, visiting places 'twould been wise to veer. Doors once hid now reappear. Your danger grows ever near. With ways now open, they seek revenge. The world's fate stands upon the ledge." There was a long silence. I would say it was easily a minute before the old woman tilted her head to the side. "Questions?" "I'm sorry?" I asked. "Do you have any questions?" she repeated in a wave of voices. "Oh, I didn't think that's how this stuff worked. I thought you just gave me an ambiguous warning about something and just left me to try to figure things out." I turned to Enola. "That's very considerate of all of you." "Dude," Enola said, gesturing to her great aunt. "Oh, right," I thought for a second. "Why did you receive a warning that was a basic rhyme poem?" "What?" the many voices of Mida asked. "I mean, it sounded okay, but it sounded like something a high school kid would write for their Dungeons and Dragons game," I shrugged. "Just seems out of place." "You know what? Fuck this guy," a male voice said from Mida. It was joined by a chorus of other voices. It was very off-putting since she didn't move her mouth anymore, with the voices pouring out insults and curses over each other. There was one last voice, sounded like a little girl, who said, "I hope he gets the clap." Then Mida closed her mouth and fell back into her chair. "Whoa, that last one was not okay," I said, squirming a little. Enola punched me hard in the arm. "What the hell, Carl?" "Ow!" I cried, rubbing my arm. "What? It was a legitimate question." "Those were my ancestors. They worked really hard on that to tell you something important in a way your dumbass would understand." I felt a sharp impact on my shin. I cried out and turned to see the old woman holding a stick in her hands and the most sour look on her wrinkled face. I hadn't even seen her move. "Okay, I get it. I messed up. Can we bring them back?" "No!" Mida yelled in a raspy voice. "You are an ungrateful child. It will serve you right if you get eaten. Enola, let's go." "Wait, what did it mean about the person that travelled from here and opened the doors?" I asked, looking between Enola and her great aunt as they both got up. "I have no idea, boy," Mida said as she slowly walked from the room. "Figure it out. I did my job, and I'm going home." The rest of that day was soured by that interaction. This is a good example of why I don't drink very often. It tends to cloud my better judgment, and I can't be insulting someone's ancestors when they're trying to help me out. It sets a bad precedent. This job is hard and I need all the help I can get. Thankfully, Enola slipped me a written version of the poem before she left. I guess Mida had shared it with her before she came here. After a few hours of looking over it and trying to figure anything in the CWAP unsuccessfully, I still didn't know what it was talking about. I tried to write to take my mind off things. Currently working on a romance novel between a female vampire and a merman in future Tokyo. Even though I tried, I just couldn't get my mind off of what Enola had said and the warning from her ancestors. I decided to go for a hobble to find Maria, despite her telling me to keep resting. The crutch was awkward and a little unwieldy at times, but it got the job done. It was approaching dinner time, and I found Maria with a bunch of the campers at the archery range. "Thought I told you to stay back in your cabin," Maria said as I came up beside her. "Yeah, but I was going stir crazy and needed to get out," I said as I watched the kids attempt to hit various targets. We had your traditional round straw targets, one that looked like an elk and a handful that looked like various other creatures from around the woods. It helped to know who you could trust to make a shot with a bow when it counted. We didn't have many promising archers in this group. She said as she surveyed the kids. "So who was the women that visited you today? Never seen them." "Johnny, don't point that to Erica!" before. I heard two of the boys muttering as they began firing at the targets again. Long story. Enola, the younger woman, is a regular around the woods and camp. She visits somewhat regularly, but she doesn't like being seen, so she tends to sneak around. Enola is really chill. She can turn into a massive black fox. How big is massive? About 8 foot long, but 2 of that is her tail and 4 feet tall, I replied, showing her the height with my free hand. Maria nodded. "Yeah, that's pretty massive. What about the older woman?" "It's her great aunt, apparently," I said with a sigh. I hadn't met her before today. Apparently she received a message from their ancestors that she needed to give me some sort of warning. "Oh really? That sounds exciting." I shrugged and took the paper with the poem out of my pocket and handed it to her. I guess I kind of insulted her and her ancestors, so they all don't like me now. Maria took the paper with a raised eyebrow. "How did you insult them?" "Told them I didn't think the wording and style of the warning was very impressive. Thought it was kind of cliché." "Wow, are you serious? You said that to someone's supernatural ancestors?" Maria asked as she began reading the poem. "Your ass is getting haunted." "It's surprising that I haven't been haunted already. Maybe I have the opposite problem of the kid from The Sixth Sense. It would make it hard for anyone to haunt me if I couldn't see them." I watched as a girl tried to shoot 2 arrows at a time, only to have them flip wildly through the air for a couple of feet before hitting the ground. Her friends laughed at her. "Sounds ominous," Maria said as she handed the paper back to me. "Do you know what it's talking about?" "I have no idea," I replied as I put the paper back in my pocket. "I'm going to talk to some of the locals and see if I can figure anything out tomorrow." Maria looked at her watch and told all of the kids to gather the equipment and put it away before they got ready for the nightly fire. "I suppose that's a good idea. Let me know how that goes." "Will do," I said as I adjusted my crutch to get moving again. "What's for din—" The question died in my throat as I heard a muffled scream from the woods. I looked across the clearing to see a skeletal and sickly pale woman, one with no face, lurching on the periphery of the woods. The kids all stopped and stared at the faceless, the first time they'd ever seen her. "That's not right," I whispered to Maria. I felt glued to the spot as a cold sweat covered my body. "She's never been out in the day." "Come on kids, we need to go," Maria said as she began to quickly gather them up. "Leave everything and don't make a sound. We'll be all right." I shook myself out of my stupor and began limping as quickly as possible with the kids. Glancing behind me, I saw that the faceless had made her way into the clearing. Luckily, she hadn't reacted to our presence. However, she wasn't wandering around aimlessly. She appeared to have focused on something. In the no quiet of our surroundings, I could hear faint cheering and yelling in the direction she was going. I moved up to one of the kids closest to me. A boy I would guess was around 14 with brown curly hair and a noticeable sunburn on his face. "Hey," I whispered, "where are the rest of the campers and counsellors?" "They were playing kickball on the other side of the camp, I think," he said as quietly as he could, moving his mouth as little as possible. "Some others might have gone to the lake, but I'm not sure." And at that moment I knew I had to do something stupid. You see, the faceless was going in the direction of the kickball fields. The games were loud, and it was likely that they hadn't heard the screams, nor would they before it was too late. "Run to Maria and tell her to get all of you inside, then get all of the other campers and counsellors inside. Tell her not to come after me. I know what I'm doing, and I will see them in the morning at the latest. If they don't see me, tell them to keep the camp safe and that Maria is in charge. You got all that?" The boy nodded and began to jog as quietly as he could to where Maria walked at the front of the line. I began hobbling towards the faceless. I saw the kid get to Maria and deliver my message. She immediately turned to me with a look of horror. She looked like she was about to say something, but I just shook my head and screamed, "Hey, bitch, come get dinner!" The faceless immediately turned in my direction and began moving my way. Since I was only about 100 yards away from her, I began limping to the tree line, which wasn't too difficult, but slower than I would have liked. Once within the forest, I slowed down more since I had to start choosing my steps and crutch placement as carefully as I could. I was now living a scenario I have run way too many times in my head. It was a common thought experiment of mine. There were two things to keep in mind. If I was too quiet, the faceless would lose interest in me, and there was something else she heard instead. On the other hand, if I made a sound at the wrong time, specifically when she was too close, it would mean death. In those scenarios, I had imagined having full use of my body, so this was a hell of a lot harder. If I lost my footing or stumbled, I wouldn't be able to get back up in enough time to put distance between us again. And out of all the ways I would want to go out, being eaten was not at the top of that list. All that being said, luck appeared to be on my side. My tactics had been working perfectly. A rock knocked over here, the rustling of a branch there, followed by silent movement. I had managed to keep her interest for quite some time, easily half a mile. I knew that by this point the campers would be safe. Now I had to figure out how to get it off of my own trail. And that's when the crutch slipped on a rock as I was making my way downhill. I cried out as it sent me toppling forward and rolling down the incline dozens of yards. I hit my head on something so hard my vision flared white, and I felt my injured foot hit squarely on a rock or two. The pain seared through my foot, burning a path up my nerves, which might have been the only thing that kept me conscious. I was brought to an abrupt stop when I rolled into a tree, the impact against my back knocking the wind out of me. I wanted to scream from the pain in my foot, but managed to hold it in enough to be a very anguished which was more than I thought I would be able to accomplish. I heard the faceless getting closer, her screams growing louder. With that much sound, I had jumped the proverbial waters. She was crashing through bushes and branches in my direction. I looked around desperately for the crutch, hoping it was close enough that I could get up and put more distance between us. I couldn't find it. It was now lost in the underbrush somewhere further up the hill. Instead, I began looking for anything else around me, a branch, a rock, anything I could use to maybe distract her. I searched desperately, her screams getting louder with every moment. And then I saw her coming down the hill, moving with a predator's grace. Though blind, she never hit into anything. I knew my search was pointless now. I would simply alert her before I found a distraction and be dead anyways. Instead, I grabbed the Leatherman from my pocket and flipped open the knife. I wasn't going to be eaten without a fight. I knew I almost certainly couldn't kill her, but I was going to try. I held the tiny weapon, ready to make a last stand as she ran at me. The Faceless was almost on top of me when she stopped stone still. She was only 5 feet away at the most. Her head turned from side to side, making no noise. The Faceless was listening for me. She didn't know exactly where I was, didn't know I was right in front of her. She was waiting for me to give the next hint of where I had gone. I had a possible chance, but I couldn't think of what to do. My brain had stopped working as I looked at her. I've seen the Faceless many times, but I had never seen her this close. At any time, it would have been absolutely terrifying. In the light of day, it was exponentially worse. We expect monsters to exist at night and in the dark. That's why we run from the basement when we turn off the lights or hesitate to leave the safety of our beds in the middle of the night. The day is safe though. It's always been safe, even at Camp Wanahee. No, that was gone. I was before her now, a living nightmare in the light of day. All I had was a tiny knife. I was at her mercy, and in the light of the afternoon sun I could see every bit of the horror I was up against. The skin was stretched so tight and thin that I could see the veins and muscles moving beneath it. She had eyes, but I could see them moving under the skin as well, flicking and jumping violently in a pointless attempt to see anything. I could see her stomach, a thick line running up it looking puckered, like a poorly stitched wound that had healed into a disfiguring scar. I saw that line twitch. My breath, as little as I was breathing in an attempt to be quiet, caught. All at once, I saw a skeletal torso expanding as the true mouth of the Faceless opened. Her waist grew to several times its width. I heard her ribs pop and her sternum snap as they separated to reveal a gaping orifice with teeth and jutting bones yellowed with age. The smell of rot and death that emerged from it made me want to retch. The grey tongue slid out from the bottom of the mouth, extending several feet towards me. It dripped a viscous liquid and squelched as it moved. It was grey and tube-like, more a tentacle with a glossy smooth surface. It flickered around like a snake tasting the air. Then she started walking in my direction. I gripped the knife tighter. This was it. I was going to be eaten by this creature, this nightmare that day could no longer hold at bay. It came within 2 feet of me where its tongue hit the tree, and she diverted around the tree and me. The Faceless was walking slowly to make as little noise as possible. I watched as she used the tongue as a probing cane so she could find her way through the trees without making noise. I saw her stop again only a few yards away, and I instinctively held my breath as she began listening more carefully. This process repeated again and again as she moved away from me. Thinking I was in the clear, I rolled over onto my stomach and began to crawl away as quietly as I could. I hadn't gone more than a few yards when I heard screeching. I turned, expecting to see the Faceless running at me, fearing that I somehow had made enough noise for her to hear. Instead, I saw something that managed to be worse and lucky at the same time. It was large and humanoid, its flesh marbled crimson and yellow, looking like the cross-section of a body's fat and muscles. It had an oval head with bulging pale yellow eyes, attached to a neck that was too long. The neck opened up horizontally like a Pez dispenser to reveal the mouth of a demonic lamprey, which let out another curdling scream. Its fleshy tentacle-like arms ended with bony nodules that had long, wicked spikes. I knew this abomination had to be the one that escaped the door Maria and I had closed. It felt too similar. It was wrong in the same way as that other creature had been. Then they were fighting. The large and brutish newcomer attacking the much more nimble Faceless. They were attacking each other like wild animals. Their urge to kill each other became a need that was all-consuming. This was it, my chance to escape. I stood up, ignoring the pain that was coming from my foot, and began running. I could feel the stitches pop as I continued, one after another. I felt blood flowing freely and the pain was making my head swim, but I had to get away. I had to run in the direction of the camp. I had to get back. I had to escape the horrors that now roamed the day. I had to get to safety. I had to get to Wanahee. It began to become difficult though. I was beginning to lose blood a lot quicker than I thought, and my head was swimming from what I believed was a possible concussion. I had to make sure I ran back to Wanahee, back the way I came. I had to run straight. If I strayed in my state, I would likely get lost. I had to get away. I had to get away from the screams. Needed to hear them fade. But they followed me. I could hear the screaming. I heard it changing. The screaming turned from the murderous feral anger of the creatures to begging, terrified and human. The screaming that would wake me up some nights. I could hear her voice. The voice of a girl being attacked. The voice of a girl that I couldn't save. The voice of a girl I had to leave. I didn't look back. I feared she would actually be there this time. The ghost that did haunt my dreams and my memories. She's not here. She's gone. She's been gone for years. I thought as my lungs burned and my foot screamed for me to stop. Don't stop. Don't stop. She may be gone, but she may not be. Don't let her catch you. You will deserve what she does to you. Don't stop. She's not here. Don't stop. Don't let her catch you. I ran and I ran. I ran straight, hoping that I hadn't been turned around at some point. I ran, delirious with fear and increased blood loss. I ran for hours. A nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I could have sworn that the sun had gone down and all was darkness around me. I ran past the door and thought about going inside out of desperation to escape. I just kept running and I kept hearing the screaming. Please, Carl, help me. Don't stop, keep running. She's not there. Don't let her get you. I continued day after day. I continued after my feet wore away and I was running on bare bones, wearing away. My lungs no longer functioned and I could feel myself suffocating, but I kept going. I passed more doors, some colourful, some dark, wood, metal, square, round, and many in between. Why are there so many doors? I thought through the haze of confusion. I was ripped from the thoughts by her screams. They were getting louder. I could hear her footsteps getting closer. I was losing ground. I could hear her screaming turn from sorrowful pleading to angry accusations. You left me, Carl West. You left me out there. You coward. You fool. You monster. You belong here with us, with the monsters. That's why you are at Wanahee. That's why you don't forget like the rest. You're a monster like the rest of us. You can't leave. You won't leave. I felt her hands grabbing at me, tugging at my clothes. So many hands. The screaming was deafening. The trees started to thin. I saw the clearing. I saw the buildings. I ran desperately, my body begging to give out. You can't leave, Carl. You can't run from me. I felt her hands grab me, finding perches. First one, then another, then three more. All of them pulled me back into the depths of the woods. I screamed, fighting against their grip. I grabbed the Leatherman from my pocket, the knife still out. It sliced my hand as I fumbled with it, but I fixed my grip and began slashing at the hands on my arms and thighs. They released and I heard her screams mixed with pain, the anger now boiling red. I scrambled frantically. I heard her right behind me. No! And then I was in the clearing. I ran all the way to the buildings. My broken body couldn't comprehend that it could stop. My brain was unable to understand it was safe. I just ran, thinking of running to the building. It was there. It wasn't always there, only sometimes, but it was there now. Maybe it would help. Coot said it could help. Another scream came. Carl! It was Maria, and I stopped. I heard footsteps from several directions and looked and saw some of the counsellors running to my direction, all with looks of worry and panic. Carl! Maria yelled again from behind me. I turned and saw her running as well towards me. Her eyes widened as she got closer. "Oh shit, Carl, are you okay? Marcus, go get the medical kit." Marcus, a tall man with ebony skin, nodded and ran towards the mess hall. "How long have I been gone?" I asked through a throat that felt like sandpaper. "It's only been 2 hours, Carl. Are you okay?" Maria asked, growing concern. "No," I mumbled. "No, that can't be right. It's been days. I almost died. The screams." The world had started to go dim at the edges and I was losing my balance. I saw a figure in the woods behind Maria. Jeans and a red flannel shirt, both stained and torn, auburn hair. I was falling. "Shit! Grab him, Carl!" Her voice was so far away. That was the last thing I remembered as the scream deafened out of all other noise. Silence and blackness followed. I woke up in my cabin. The bedding was stuck to my skin from sweat and I felt awful. Light filtered through the curtains. It was too bright and I winced from it. Someone to my side gasped. I turned to see Jessica sitting on the couch. "You're awake," she said in her Texan drawl. "Don't move. I'll be right back with Maria." "Wait," I croaked, but she was gone in a blur of blonde hair and too much positivity. I found some water by my bed. I reached for it and found my right hand was bandaged and hurt to move. I reached over with my left instead and then began chugging it. It felt like it had been days since I'd had anything to drink, and the room temperature water was heavenly. I dropped the cup onto the nightstand and tried to sit up more. It hurt like hell, and I immediately gave up the effort. Maria came in a little while later. I expected her to look relieved, but she looked pissed. I opened my mouth to speak, but she cut me off. "Don't you dare say a single word," Maria said as she stalked towards me. "You have been unconscious for almost 2 days and have a possible concussion. And not only did you split your stitches, but you managed to widen the wound even more. I was going to have Tuita take you down to the hospital, but he told us that the roads were closed. Apparently there was a rock slide or something, and no one will be able to get up here for a while. Thankfully, he had some pretty serious antibiotics and painkillers from a surgery a while ago, and he's been letting us use them. It would serve you right if you lost your foot, but I don't think you will." Maria stood at the bedside now, glaring daggers at me. "What the hell were you thinking? You were injured and not even supposed to be outside of your cabin. We could have handled the situation." "No, you could." "I'm not done. We could have handled it. You taught us what to do. We can handle the faceless. It's one of the creatures we know the most about from the CWAP. You have a stupid hero complex. I don't care what your reasoning behind it is. It's going to get you killed. Get your shit together and quit it with the self-sacrificing behaviour. You won't be able to walk on your foot much at all if you do anything else to it. You're lucky the tendons still work. But if you try this shit again, if you go out of your way to try and be everyone's saviour, I will cut those tendons myself." We held each other's gaze for an extended moment. I laughed nervously. "You wouldn't do that." Maria pulled something out of her pocket and flicked at it. A blade appeared, which she put next to my foot. "Want to test me? Where the hell did you get a switchblade?" She shrugged. "Confiscated it from Meredith. The kid had a rough home life. I think she's from Nebraska. Regardless, do you understand?" I nodded. "Good." Maria unswitched the blade. "What are you going to be doing for the next couple of weeks?" "I'm going to be staying in my cabin." Maria nodded and sighed. "All right." She turned and made her way to the door. "I'm sorry," I said. "I have a hard time letting other people do things. It hasn't always worked out well in the past." Maria stopped. She turned around and studied me, looking to be questioning whether she should ask something. She decided it was all right. "Does this have to do with Ruby?" I felt like vomiting at the mention of the name. "What?" "When you were out, you would yell about Ruby. 'Where are you, Ruby? I'm sorry, Ruby.' Stuff like that." Maria looked at the floor. I assumed it was someone that you knew. Maybe someone who got hurt. Yeah, I said quietly. Something like that. I didn't want to talk about this. After waiting for me to expound and not doing so, Maria seemed to understand that and nodded. All right then. She turned and opened the door. I'll make sure they send lunch to you. I'll check in on your bandages later. Try to get some more rest. Sure, I said, giving her a smile she knew was fake. And she was gone. I was left alone in my cabin, stewing on my thoughts about what happened and what was happening around here. Thoughts about how I was in way over my head, how I shouldn't be in this position, how I knew I was stuck here. But I mostly thought about her. I thought about Ruby. But that wasn't doing much for my mental health. So I decided to write down all of this and bottle all of that up and shove it way in the back where it won't see the light of day until my head is opened up against my will. Sure, it's not the best coping strategy, but I also don't want to lose my mind. So I feel that with the given situation, it is a perfectly reasonable coping strategy. Anyways, that's all I have for right now. I'll be having my call with the owner on Wednesday. Update him on everything that's going on. Hopefully we will be able to figure out more about this whole warning thing. Fingers crossed on that at least. I'll let you all know what I find out. Don't forget, if you enjoyed that story, be sure to pop over to the author's Reddit profile and drop them a line or even give them a glowing review. I'm sure they really would appreciate it. The link to their Reddit profile will be below in the description. And don't forget to check out the merch store. The link will be in the description and also in the video thumbnail. And if you would like an honourable mention, send in a snapshot of yourself with your purchase and I'll feature it in one of the videos. Have you written a creepypasta story you would like me to narrate? Have you had any cryptid sightings, paranormal or supernatural encounters, or even had a creepy or terrifying situation you would like to share? Well, I now have my very own subreddit community where you can submit your stories. The link for that is also in the thumbnail as well as below in the description. You can submit your stories there, or you can send them to cryptidsroost@gmail.com. If you wish to remain anonymous, that's fine with me. Now I also have a Facebook group, Twitter, Reddit and Discord. And if you would like to support the channel and help make it grow, my PayPal is paypal.me/cryptidsroost. If you wish to remain anonymous, that's fine with me. And I also have a Facebook group, Twitter, Reddit and Discord. And if you would like to support the channel and help make it grow, my PayPal is paypal.me/cryptidsroost. And any and all donations would be gratefully received. Again, that will also be below. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not.